say top of the list has got to be go back to first principles, look at the actual proposed consumer standards, and simply do a gap analysis. Check where you comply, check where you have good practice, fantastic, and check and be really honest. Have a really good look in the mirror, check where you have gaps, and it's not rocket science, put a plan in place to improve it. I think the second point is probably around knowing your tenants. The regulator's being really clear that equality, diversity and inclusivity absolutely run throughout the standards, as do principles of respect and fairness. And you can't demonstrate those things without demonstrating that you know who's living in the homes you own and manage. So there's something around customer insight, equality data, and going beyond the TSMs as a tick box to say, what does this tell me? What sits behind the TSMs as a lens? What sits behind the complaints data? The regulator's been really clear about what they're looking for is evidence that the board or council has assurance of compliance, not just compliance itself.
The first tip is, I think, just make sure that you think very carefully about the evidence you've got and you get that into order so you can see it well within your organisation, you can demonstrate it to the regulator. I think the second tip would be don't panic. If you're not in the position where you've got a good assurance framework, that's okay. Identify the fact that you haven't and make a plan to get to that point. If you know where the gaps are and you've got a plan to address them, you're going in the right direction, aren't you? You're doing the right thing. And if you don't know where the gaps are, I'd say consider getting some help. So support to do a really robust self-assessment. That's a good starting point. If you don't know your current position, that's what you need to focus on rather than panicking about the bits where you're worried you might not be doing as much as you should be. And then the third thing I think would be listen to your tenants, which chimes with what you were saying, Catherine. It's so fundamentally important. They almost certainly already know where the gaps are. So if you ask them, that's a really good shortcut to finding out where the things are that you're not doing as well as you should be. So if you haven't got that insight already, if you're not asking your tenants, you're not listening to them, make sure that you've got a plan to do that, and co-create the way you're going to do that with your tenants if you can, because then they'll want to give you information. You're asking them in a way that makes sense to them, in a way that they'll welcome. And they can help you understand as well what the priorities are, so that when you know where the gaps are, you can get a steer from your tenants about what you should be addressing first. And I think that can be really helpful in coming up with a good plan.